today. This has been a difficult year in many ways for all of us. We've lost quite a few Major League Baseball players through the year, and those of you who know me know that I lost my baseball team as well. So I'd like to take a moment of silence to remember those players, that team, and so many other changes over the past year. I have some names from Baseball Almanac, some of the bigger names, but there's so many other folks that we can remember. So we can take a moment and hold them in our hearts. Kuno Berrigan, Billy Bean, Rico Cardi, Orlando Cepeda, Rocky Colavito, Carl Erskine, Bud Harrelson, Whitey Herzog, Ken Holtzman, Ricky Henderson, Ed Kranepool, Willie Mays, Fernando Valenzuela, Pete Rose, and Ed Ott, Lenny Randall. If anyone wants to include any names on the list, please name them now.
How old was Fernando Valenzuela?
He was born in 1980.
Sorry, no, not 1980. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Well, he's 64 or 65.
Birthday,
I believe he was 20 when he joined the Dodgers, but it might be off.
How did he pass?
I think he had been ill, if I remember the story.
I'll look it up. I want to say it was cancer, but it was pretty much kept under wraps. I'll double check and share that. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. It was shortly before the World Series, as I recall.
Wow.
It was, I think, right before Game 1, actually.
Yeah.
Like they didn't actually throw out a first pitch, the Dodgers, because because of Fernando.
He was born November 1st, 1960. So I've made my first error for the day, so keep track, somebody. Okay.
No worries. So we're going to pass it over to Tara Krieger, who is a member of the SABR National Board, to give an update.
Okay, guys, so I'll be short. I have a short PowerPoint. Hopefully there are a couple brief demonstrations, but hopefully they work. So can I share my screen? Am I allowed to share it? I don't know if you need to be an administrator or something.
You sure can, but let's just double check. Tara,
all right. Okay, let's see if I can get share. Send request sharing is not turned on. All right, well, I just sent a request to share my screen. Okay, cool.
Yep, you should be good now.
Let's see if I can do it. Okay, let's see if this works. All right, share. Okay, you guys can see it, right? Cool.
Yep.
All right, okay, so I'm just gonna give a couple updates on certain developments in SABR and certain cool things with the website. So first off, convention's coming up. Registration is now open, early bird registration and all that. Should be a great convention. It's at the Weston DFW Airport. So it'll be a little bit of a different convention, but I'm also told everything's a bit cheaper. So that's probably good for a lot of you because I know costs have been going up. As you can see, we have a Rangers-Mariners game on the schedule. I think you can go to both the behind-the-scenes tour and the Frisco Rough Riders game this year, which is different from last year when you had to choose one or the other. I think the tour is right before the game. There are scheduled speakers include Yvonne Rodriguez, Bruce Bochy, Chris Young, introduction, a bunch of big names on the Rangers as well. You'll have a welcome reception. The closing ceremony is a trivia contest, more coffee talks, the way we did in Minnesota. So if you're interested in submitting a research abstract, it's February 16th. And if you want to volunteer to either review those abstracts or be a judge during the convention, you can send an email to that email there, conventionpresentations@sabr.org.
And Tara, as Jeff just wrote, your slide is still showing page 1. So if you've got a double monitor set up, you're probably sharing the wrong one.
I don't, but so you guys can't see page 2.
No.
Oh no. Okay, let's see. How do I
Click on your second.
Oh, I know what you know. I know what to do. You're right. Good call. I got to go
There you
to,
go.
right. Okay. So, I have to actually, I know what to do. Let me just unshare for a second. I think it's like you do the thing where it's like if you start, screen sharing, share. All right.
It's a great
See if we can
lineup
do
of
this. I know.
speakers, isn't it?
Yeah. Share. Wait. Okay. There we go. Right there. Okay. That's what I want. Awesome. Okay. So, all right. So that's the slide for anyone who didn't see it. So convention-presentations at saber.org is the big thing. So, all right. Analytics is also coming up. I believe the early bird registration is still open, or at least it was as of the other day. It's March 14th to 16th in Arizona State. It's similar to previous years. If anyone who's ever gone, there's a virtual registration. It's also discounted for students. And student registration also gets a complimentary Rapsodo certification and 1 year of Saber membership. There's a the Dime Dollars competition where students get together and solve a real baseball front office problem. That's going on Friday. Feature speakers. It's a great lineup. Including Brian Kenny and the head of the American Sports Medicine Institute. Cubs. You can see. So it's a good lineup as well. So anyone who's still interested in that, you can sign up there. Along with that, SABR in the past year has introduced the Scholar Sessions, which are quarterly sessions for mainly aimed at students and young professionals. I'm sure anyone can go, just to sort of talk about, just how to break into the business. It's hosted by Tyrone Brooks, who's on our board. Works for diversity with MLB. Has done great works getting in young people at MLB or in baseball. And the guest on February 10th, which is the next one, is Dan Evans, the former Dodgers GM, also on our SABR board. And a lot of we'll be talking about analytics, but I'm sure anything you want to come up. Past year, the SABR website, we've seen a lot of growth, 2.6 million unique visitors, which is amazing. 179,000 a month. There was an all-time high of 242,000 in June, probably going off Rickwood Field and game and, the death of Willie Mays and, maybe the All-Star game coming up. I don't know, a bunch of stuff going on in June. So that's probably why that was so high. There were 4.3 million page views since 2022, more than 12 million views of the site, which is crazy. In the past year, more than 1,200 articles have been added to the research collection, of which, that's one of the highest, more than 25,000 views of those articles. In addition, 7 books have been added to the SABR library. Digital library, and all of those are available. If you're a member, you can download the entire ebook for free and read the whole thing just by going to the website. Let's see if this works. Yeah, so you just go. They have listed. You can buy the ebook. You click on that, and if you're a member, it'll just the price will be crossed out for the ebook, and it'll say free. So. I'm not sure. You guys can see the website, right?
Digital.
Okay. I want to make sure what's on my screen is what's on your screen.
We can actually see your slide that shows
you can't see
7
the
titles,
website.
but
okay. So you can't see the website. All right. Well, I may have to just sort of toggle or something. Let's say share. Okay.
We can also include it in the
yeah. So
in the
yeah. Okay. I may just have to sort of. Yeah. Now you can see it, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Well, I may just have to show the slides. So, I thought I had it up. It's kind of annoying. Oh well, whatever. Okay. So anyway, yeah, but you can see the titles. Well, And I'm sorry, I know this is a Northern California crowd, so I'm sorry that 2 books are Dodgers this year, but you know, that's what it
We've got
is.
Dodger fans online, so no problem.
This is true. Yeah, you're right. It's all things, but I know. Anyway.
Now we can see the website. Yes. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right. So the other big thing is so the Dazzling Debut, which is one of the books, that was also made into a web presentation. Let's see if that shows up. Can you guys see the website for that as well?
No.
No.
I don't see any websites, none.
Okay, you're not seeing anything. Let's see if I can toggle again. Okay. Let's see. So
While Tara does that, is
Okay.
anybody not familiar with how to get to the books on the website?
I'm not familiar with how to.
oh, I see screen sharing.
I
pause,
tried
that's
once
why.
and I couldn't make it work.
Okay, I'll
It's pretty, yeah. I can.
Tara, don't sweat
Okay.
it. We can.
I'm just sorry. I'm trying to. Yeah. Okay.
No,
I know
don't
you're
sweat
on
it.
limited time here. I was trying
No.
to do it. So
No,
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
send the note to everybody after the meeting
Right.
with the step-by-step instructions. Yeah.
okay. I'm saying I'm pausing my screen sharing. This is weird. Okay. Okay. I'll share it again. All right. Share. And Dazzling Debut. See if this works. Okay. Okay. So this is also pretty cool. You guys can see this, right? The website.
Now we can. Yes.
Okay, so the Dazzling Debut website. This was in conjunction with the book. It's basically an entire database of everyone who's got a first at-bat home run. So the book, I think, only highlights some people, and this like goes through everyone and everything we have on them. So for instance, if you click on, let's go to MLB. Can you anything? I saw Japan and Korea and everything, but you can see if you go to the Diamondbacks, this is everybody on the Diamondbacks who's hit a home run in their first at bat. To the extent we have any more information, a bio or whatever, or a game recap, it's there. If you don't have one, if it doesn't have a bio or a game recap, just speak to the bio project or the games project. Maybe you're the one who can write it. So that's pretty cool. Let's see what else we got. Where was I? Okay, team. Yeah. Okay. Other thing I want to share with you, the MLB Team Employee Database. This is something that was put up in the past year through the Business of Baseball Committee. It's a historic database of MLB team employees. It's more than 40,000 people. I think it's pretty much complete back to 1960, but it goes back to the 19th century. And, being SABR, things are added. So, if you want to search for someone, let's search for Dan Evans. I know he has a pretty big presence. I'm just going to type in Evans. I think it pops up. Yeah. So you can see this is all the stuff he's done. If you click on it, you get pretty much every position he's ever held. Going back to, I guess, when he was an intern. What's also cool is you can see, things like the ownership timeline. I don't know why it defaults to the Mets, but it does. But if you want to see, I don't know, let's go to the, I think it has like grounds crew or something on here. Yeah, groundskeeper. Search. Yeah, you can see everyone who's ever been the groundskeeper for the Mets going back to the 60s. Like I said, this isn't 100% complete, I've noticed. Like I tried the White Sox and it only showed me like through the 70s, but it's still, it has a lot of information on there. And of course there are stats about it. There's a feedback page. So, this being SABR, if anything's incomplete or if you have more information, it's a communal thing we can all add to it.
Sorry, are some of the teams current?
Yeah, is it current? Yeah, I believe so. I believe it has everything.
Okay.
I believe it's everything. I think it's pretty much current as of 1960. So I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page here.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it's a cool little thing. Yeah. So it's just, I think you just go to frontoffice.sabr.org. You might need to like relog in or something again, but you can see right here, frontoffice.sabr.org. I also I want to show you, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with the Rucker archive. That's another thing that Mark Rucker donated all his photographs, and they've been, over the past few years, they've all been scanned in. It's over 80,000 images, which is wild. you know, they're all available for SABR projects. They're also available for purchase. You can search for it. So for instance, if you search, and it's ongoing as well. So we have the Pictorial History Committee actually entering in all the information of the photographs. So that's not complete yet. That's an ongoing project. If you want to participate in like entering in information, you can talk to Pictorial History. I'll show you what you mean. So for instance, I'm searching for Willie Mays here. Let's see, Willie Mays laughing. Let's see what pops up. Yeah, you get a picture of Willie Mays laughing. So if you want to purchase it, it's just available for a nominal fee. If you just want to go in and look at different pictures, great. You know, if you're doing a SABR project and you're like, maybe you want to say when it goes, you know, you're doing an article and you want it goes up, you're like, hey, I'd love for you to use this picture in the record archive with my SABR article or something. I'm sure you can just talk to Jacob Pomerenke about that. So, you know, you can see it has all the information we know about the photo. This is all entered in by the Pictorial History Committee. Like I said, it's, you know, it's another SABR project. They're all doing this. So some of the pictures don't have information yet, but it will soon. You know, if you want to do that, just talk to the Pictorial History Committee as volunteer. Oral history. Let's see if I can turn that up. Okay. Yeah. So the oral history has added in like a lot of interviews in the past year. I think they have over 800 interviews now or something like that.
Wow.
You know, going back. So if you want to go and listen to people, you can go and I know they've added in a lot of cool little archives. There's this newscaster, Cliff, I forget his last name, but has a bunch of really old stuff. My favorite being Herbert Hoover talking about being a baseball fan, which is only 2 minutes long, but it's a fun little interview. So that's also a great resource if you're researching something. You can see some of the stuff that's been added in the past year. Some were done like through, you know, SABR meetings, which are, you know, if you check the weekly, you know, the SABR, This Week in SABR, you know, you can see if any of those are coming up and you can actually watch them live. So that's also cool. And also, let's see if I can switch here. Go back to the presentation here. Okay, so let's go back to here. You know, I'll just do this because I have 2 more slides. But you know, also on our online resources, you know, if you just go to research resources, if you guys know, you can see paper of record where you can see, you know, it's a lot of like old newspapers, but the big one is Sporting News. I think for older than like, you know, 1950 or so, you may just have to browse it like you're looking at microfilm because the copy isn't very good, but that's been there for a while. ProQuest Historic Black Newspapers, that's really great. And it's a really good, you know, searchable tool. If you're doing any, you know, research in the Negro Leagues or whatever, there's a lot of good stuff there. That's a really good copy. Newspapers.com, we have a lot of, you know, old newspapers as well. And that's all, you know, it doesn't have everything, but it has a lot of, you know, there are a lot of like local newspapers and things like that. You can just go there and search. I found sometimes that the cookies don't work, so you may have to go into your settings and clear your cache to look it up, but you can see all that through research resources. And I found a lot of really amazing stuff there. And lastly, I just want to mention that there's a, you know, there's a special election coming up with regard to a bylaw change. Starting on February 19th, we're doing a bylaw with regards to conflicts of interest because sometimes board members, you know, might have access to information with another competing organization. And we just want to make sure that, you know, everyone has their best interest of SABR at heart. So it essentially prohibits concurrent service in the role of a full-time employee or board member for another nonprofit organization whose principal focus is baseball as a conflict of interest that disqualifies individual from serving on the SABR board. It hasn't really been a problem until now, but we're doing this to kind of safeguard in the future. You know, it would allow any board member currently serving who has that sort of conflict just to finish out their term if such a thing existed, if it passed. So, you know, you'll get something from the tellers committee about it. You know, close to when the election starts, and, you know, you'll pretty much be able to vote yes or no through March 5th. So, yeah, I believe that's all I have to share today. You know, are there any questions? If not, we can keep going. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Tara. Really appreciate it. And I want to echo all of the wonderful resources, research resources that SABR has. I personally have used a lot of them. in the articles that I've written, and it is quite worth the price of membership, if you would.
Yeah, there are so many other things. If you just go to research resources, there are like a ton of other databases, you know, old time players and, you know, contract cards and all kinds of stuff. So if you literally just go to the SABR main page and you hit research resources, like it's kind of crazy the amount of information out there. So even if you're not like a seasoned researcher, which I know a lot of you are, but if you're not, and you're just like, what about this thing? I have a question. You know, it's kind of amazing the stuff, you know, we get for a SABR membership.
Absolutely.
Just tap into. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, up next, I'm going to give a brief update on the Sacramento
Bar
chapter.
members of retro sheet or an employee of baseball reference from being a board member. Maybe. That's a good question. I mean, if it's because it doesn't, it probably would because they're, I guess, related, but I don't know about retro sheet, so to speak, because retro sheet is kind of like, I guess it's a little ancillary and they're kind of like, and they're not affiliated, but that may be different. That it's probably one of these things that it'll, you know, it'll be something that'll be considered, and, you know, the board would decide, you know, yes or no, is this a conflict? It would seem that if it's, you know, it would seem it would fit in that, and, you know, it is a nonprofit whose principal focus is baseball. I know it doesn't bar, like, if you're a member of your local Little League club or whatever, but something like that probably would, yes.
Great. Thank you. That was a good question. Okay, so up next, I just want to give a quick update on the Sacramento chapter. So this year, our board members are Pat, Dennis, Scott, Marshall, John, Rich, and myself, Tony. We look forward to having a good slate of activities, not just for the Sacramento chapter, but also in conjunction with the San Francisco chapter. I do want to point out, and this is a general statement that I'm about to make, not necessarily just the Sacramento board, but we are aware that there have been some phishing emails sent by people trying to swindle us out of funds. So if you get any sort of email from anybody who is a SABR member or a SABR board member and talks about needing to wiring money, be aware that is a scam. Essentially, they are just using our names, but when you actually hover over the email address, it is something that is not related to SABR. So be aware of that. Upcoming events. I know that today the San Francisco Giants are having their Fan Fest over at Sutter Health Park, formerly Raley Field. There is going to be the similar event to be held at Pac Bell over on the 8th of March. So coming up in slightly over a month. It's a wonderful event. Tickets are free and you get to meet some players, coaches, take pictures with the trophies, all that kind of good stuff. I have been sending a monthly email for the last 2 months, that is. So a digest of activities coming up for the Sacramento chapter. If you have not been getting those, please make sure that the email address that we have on file for you is accurate. We're actually, the board, we are actually in the process of reaching out to all of our members and just making sure we got the latest and greatest in terms of your contact information. If you are craving baseball, and then again, who isn't, the Caribbean Series, the annual tournament that is disputed among the winning Winter League champions from Venezuela, from Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and this year also Japan is happening. It started yesterday in Mexico, and you can watch those games on the Major League Baseball Network. Couple of upcoming events as well. There is the Sacramento Baseball Hall of Fame annual dinner on the 15th. Tickets are $50. I have sent the information over on our digest. Keep in mind, this is a non-SABR event. This year's honorees include former All-Star Fernando Vigna, who played for a handful of teams in Major League Baseball, and is a Sacramento native. There's also going to be a card show in April, a baseball card show that is. the 3-day event in Sacramento. Not a whole lot of details right now, but I've sent the link. And then the next meeting that we have as joint chapters, we are going to have a couple of books being discussed. One is going to be from our fellow Sacramento Board member, Marshall, who is going to be talking about the 1985 World Series. And then we're also going to have a presentation from a member of the Colorado chapter, Jason, who is going to be talking about the parallel careers of Billy Williams and Willie McCovey. And lastly, Tara did a wonderful job, as we mentioned, in terms of highlighting all of the different resources that we have in SABR. I do want to point out that the Bio Project is always looking for not just writers, but also fact checkers and editors. And there are many, many, many A's and giants whose bios still have not been written. I'm working on cross-referencing the list of those who have been written to Baseball Reference, so we have a good idea. But if you have a particular interest on any players or any particular elements of those two franchises or any other franchise, certainly raise your hand. And lastly, when it comes to baseball games, we have been tracking when the season starts and when tickets go on sale for not just the big two franchises, but also a lot of collegiate baseball teams here. And we plan to have a couple of different events. So look for information on that coming soon. With that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Marlene.
Thank you. A couple of things before I talk about what the Lefty O'Doul chapter is working on. I'm delighted to be working with Tony and the entire board. We've enjoyed a wonderful partnership with the Dusty Baker chapter for years. And the last 4 years with Zoom capabilities have certainly allowed us to do a lot more together. So I enjoy that. I look forward to continuing that relationship both virtually and in person. Thank Tony and the board. You know, if you're on the Sacramento board and you're here, could you raise your hand so folks can see who you are? Okay, great. And also thanks to Zach Ford for all the work he did over the past few years. Steve Treader and Pete McPhail, who are with me on the Lefty O'Doul leadership, are not able to join us today. Steve's now living in Tucson. So that's another good reason for Zoom meetings. But we've been busy the last year or so working on chapter organization as directed by SABR. We have prepared chapter bylaws and procedures. We sent those out to primary Lefty O'Doul chapter members last fall with a survey. We did get a limited response to that survey. So I'm gonna work with Jacob to send that out again, just asking folks, you know, what you're interested in and trying to find out who might be interested in helping out with the chapter and working with us. I've been your leader for a long time and I have loved all of it. I was just saying earlier how much fun it is to work on these meetings and then to get together and see you all. But I'd really like to get some more people involved, to get some new ideas into our chapter. So I'm going to send out, and thank you for those who responded to the survey and have raised your hand to look into volunteering. So I'm going to send out that survey again, and if anyone in the Lefty O'Doul chapter is interested, please get in touch with me. So plans are to continue our monthly or bi-monthly joint meetings. Hopefully go to a ball game or two during the season. Shane Barclay from JapanBall will be joining us. And we had a wonderful meetup at a Ballers game last summer, and we hope to do that again. Also looking for suggestions for venues, especially in San Francisco, and anybody who might be interested in taking the lead on that. So we're continuing with what we do. We look forward to your input, and anybody who wants to lend a helping hand, that would be great. And also, if you're not also a member of the Dusty Baker chapter, it's easy to add them to your groups. And that way you'll be able to get the newsletter that Tony's been sending out. It's full of information. So I would encourage you to join both chapters. And if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to get in touch with me. There's a couple of newish members on this call, so I'm glad to see you too. And again, so delighted that all of you are here with us today to celebrate baseball. Any questions for me? Any volunteers on the spot?
Just keep up the good work, Marlene.
Thank you. It's fun. You know, I've met the best people, or we meet the best people doing this. And, you know, some of you I've known for a very long time, and I look forward to getting to know others of you as well. So we are at 11:30, and I think we could probably just move ahead to you, Jon. And then when Shane gets here, maybe he'll go around noon, if that works.
Fine by me.
Does that work for everybody? Tony, that good? Okay. So most of you know Jon. Jon Leonoudakis is a well-known documentary film maker, and he's been a friend of baseball and a friend of SABR and a friend of our chapters for many, many years. He's done lots of presentations for us, and right now he's working on a documentary about Lefty O'Doul and another project as well. So we're delighted that he can join us this morning and sort of bring us up to date on both those projects. Thanks, Jon.
Thank you, Marlene, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my screen, and here we go. Can you see Lefty?
Gotcha.
All right, I'll go full screen here. So the project actually launched kind of unofficially in 2016 when Tom O'Doul, I interviewed Tom at Lefty's restaurant on Geary Street, and that was about 7 months before it shut down. But that interview launched the project, and the project gained momentum during the 2020 COVID shutdown, and we created a very compelling trailer for the film. While the progress depends on crowdfunding from our amazing supporters, who we call Team Lefty, we are now in the final stages of getting the remaining interviews we need to make the film, and we're beginning our editorial work. And we've released 2 pieces so far: a documentary about Lefty's 1949 tour, the Goodwill Tour of Japan, and just this week, a 15-minute highlight reel showcasing the various chapters from the film. Now, I'm going to share a link to both of those at the end of the presentation, and Marlene and Tony will have those links to share with you as well. And just note that this is all part of a work in progress. And in particular, the 49 Goodwill Tour thing is missing some very critical interviews with Japanese nationals. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But 2024, we made great progress. Lefty was inducted into the Irish American Baseball Hall of Fame on May the 10th at Oracle Park, and our team was on hand to cover the moment, as well as interviewing Tom O'Doul and Micheál Smith, the Consul General of Ireland in San Francisco. From May 29th through the 31st, the Hall of Fame's annual symposium on baseball and American culture, I presented about Lefty's 1949 tour, and I also presented about the 49 tour at the 9 Spring Training Conference in Tempe, Arizona. And these speaking opportunities are really important because they help to create awareness about Lefty and the project. And while I was there, I met with R.J. Lara, who is the lead curator for the new Yakyu baseball exhibit opening later in the Hall of Fame this summer, and more on that shortly. In 2024, we had some amazing interview subjects. San Francisco Chronicle columnist Carl Nolte, who's 94 years old, beloved broadcaster Marty Lurie, author Steve Treader, our good friend, and author Robert Whiting, who wrote You Gotta Have Wa and a number of other books about Japan and Japanese baseball. Mike Murphy, the San Francisco Giants legendary clubhouse manager, who doesn't give a lot of interviews, by the way, but he actually met Lefty O'Doul when he was a bat boy for the Seals, and then got to know him, of course, when they both were involved with the Giants. And another good friend, Doug McWilliams, photographer and historian Doug McWilliams. All have made excellent contributions to the film, and you can get a sense of that when you look at the new 15-minute piece. August 24th, we had a screening of the 1949 Goodwill Tour film at the San Francisco Main Library. We had a very robust turnout, which also featured a spirited post-screening gathering at the Cadillac Bar and Grill nearby, and many members of Team Lefty crowdfunders attended, and I thank them for being a part of that. And key members of the Japan Society of Northern California attended, and I'm hoping to partner with them and some of their partners to help fund the project. I decided to enter the 1949 work in progress short film into some film festivals last year, and it ended up winning the Best Documentary Short at the Austin International Film Festival, as well as the New Hollywood Director Festival in Los Angeles, and it also played at the in San Francisco at the SF Short Film Fest at the 4-Star Theater. Really exciting news just came out the last week or so about the Hall of Fame's new exhibit that will be opening this summer. It's called Yakyu Baseball, the Trans-Pacific Exchange of the Game. And that will explore the long-standing exchange of teams and players in the more than 150 years since baseball was introduced to Japan. It opens some point in July 2025. It's probably going to be part of the induction weekend because Ichiro is going to be inducted. One of the amazing things I discovered looking at the rendering was that Lefty O'Doul is featured in this rendering on the left side, of course, of the entryway. And Tom O'Doul and I are planning to attend, and our goal is to capture the exhibit, Lefty's role, interview attendees, exhibit curator RJ Lara, Japanese nationals like Masanori Murakami and Nobuishi Ito, who is the chief of international baseball operations for the NPB, that's Japan's version of MLB, and a historian in his own right, and a big fan of Lefty O'Doul. And both of those gentlemen have already agreed to be interviewed for the project. The cost of traveling to Japan and shooting interviews for the project there may be a bit of a hill to climb for us in terms of raising the funding. So we're hoping to get a lot of those Japanese nationals coming to Cooperstown for this event. And those voices are really critical to telling the story of Lefty's life and achievements. So we're going to get them one way or the other. And I'm also looking into directing those sessions in Tokyo, remotely from Los Angeles with the studio team in Tokyo. And there was an amazing discovery of a new trove of images of Lefty O'Doul. During a routine search for images, I loved the research part of the filmmaking process, and I was looking for images of San Francisco in the 1930s, and I got a hit from the Bancroft Library of University of California at Berkeley, and discovered a rich trove of images of O'Doul I'd never seen before. I shared them with Tom O'Doul and author Dennis Snelling, who's with us today, and neither of them had seen this. And Dennis had done a deep dive for images when he wrote his excellent biography of O'Doul that came out in 2017, but Dennis said those weren't available at the time. And these were taken, I believe, with large format speed graphic cameras. And I believe the gentleman was a photographer for the Chronicle or the Examiner. I think it was the Examiner. But there was an amazing collection of them here, and it's just stunning to find new material from somebody who's been gone for so long. And these, of course, are almost 100 years old, so it's really amazing. And very excited about this next piece of business. If you don't know, Lefty O'Doul has one of the most remarkable gravestones from anybody in Major League Baseball, and it says, you know, the man in the green suit, he was here at a good time and had a good time while he was here. It's got his statistics, there's a life-size marble bat, and a baseball that has his lifetime batting average on it. And I was looking at it and I said, well, we got to take care of this. We've got to you know, fix up that baseball and so on and so forth. So I went ahead and got an estimate from monument grave marker people in the area there down in Colma, and this is a little bit south of San Francisco. And so we've submitted a request with the SABR's Monument Committee to see if they will fund part or all of the renovation. Just to fix the ball is about $200. And the rest of it is going to cost about $3,200 to give it an acid bath and sealers and all that stuff so it can withstand the elements and be good for the next 100 years. That's going to be like another $3,200. So we've submitted that to SABR to see if they'll fund any of it. Worst comes to worst, we'll take care of the $200 ourselves. And the monument people said, hey, little soap and water, you can clean it up, so on and so forth. So at the very least, we're going to do that. And we're going to be setting up an event in March to celebrate Lefty's birthday for us all to gather at the monument after it's been cleaned up. And we're going to film that for the documentary, and we're going to have some sort of event. We haven't figured out the content of it yet, but we're going to invite everybody from Sacramento and the San Francisco chapters to come and participate and celebrate Lefty O'Doul on his birthday. And we're going to go out nearby at a nice restaurant and get together and chew the fat, talk about Lefty, so on and so forth. We've got some exciting interviews coming up. John Miller has been kind enough to agree to be interviewed for the project. You know, if you don't know, of course, everybody knows John. He's a Hall of Fame broadcaster, but I didn't know he's a Bay Area kid. He was born in Novato in 1952. And his, you know, everybody knows his, if you've heard John, he has an encyclopedic knowledge of baseball history. So we're looking forward to speaking with John. That's going to happen sometime this month. And we're also going to be talking with Bill Staples Jr. in Tempe, Arizona in early March. And Bill is an award-winning baseball historian and author, and his areas of expertise include Japanese, American, and Negro Leagues baseball history as a context for exploring the themes of civil rights, cross-cultural relations, and globalization. He's written 2 books, Gentle Black Giants, A History of Negro Leaguers in Japan, and Kenichi Zenomura, Japanese American baseball pioneer. So the film has begun the assembly stage in the edit bay, but some major components loom. One of the very important things for the vision of this project is that we're going to bring Lefty back to life. He's been gone too long, and a lot of people don't know who he was or will remember what he sounded like. And so we're going to have an actor voice Lefty who will be a narrative thread throughout the film. His lines will be real statements he made while he was alive. And my vision for the film is to give Lefty a presence, to have him with us, sharing his story. He died in 1969, as I mentioned, and many think he's a fictional character along the lines of Betty Crocker, this guy that's part of this Bloody Mary mix that's very popular around the country. The other piece is that we're going to have very special art or animation that's going to be used to highlight milestone moments in Lefty's life. And what you're seeing here, this is very temporary art that's kind of a Japanese watercolor style treatment, which we were just kind of experimenting with. So lastly, what does this all mean? As great a player and baseball man as he was, Lefty O'Doul was an even better human being. From a young age, he vowed to use the gift of athleticism he was born with to help other people. The film is essentially about an unheralded humanitarian who went through life disguised as a baseball star. Lefty's legacy of brotherhood and friendship as a means to help each other and live in harmony is evergreen and invaluable. I truly think the man, his story, and message can make this world a better place, especially in these divided times. This man with an 8th grade education made a very positive impact on the world we still feel today. And one can certainly argue the rise and success of Nomo, Matsui, and Otani tie back to this southpaw from San Francisco. He's in danger of being forgotten, and Lefty O'Doul deserves to be remembered and remembered well. Now you can check out our new highlight reel at the link above, and don't worry about writing it all down. You can if you want to, but I've shared it with Tony and Marlene, and they'll share it with you as well. And I welcome you to visit the documentary's website. It's leftyodouldoc.com. And there you can see the original trailer we did in 2020, as well as the 1949 Goodwill Tour of Japan piece. And if you would like to join Team Lefty, if you're able to donate, any amount helps, and all crowdfunders receive credit in the final film. When you watch the 49 Goodwill Tour film, or you watch the little 15-minute piece that just came out, you'll see all of our crowdfunders are listed there by name, as well as our Patreon page supporters. So thank you all for your kind attention, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Was Lefty O'Doul born in San Francisco?
Yes, he was.
What neighborhood?
He was born in Butchertown, which is later known as Bayview Hunters Point. He lived not far from where Candlestick Park was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his dad was a butcher. They were kind of a poor family, and Lefty was being groomed to be a butcher. His father said after the 8th grade, you're done. You're going to learn how to be a butcher, and that's going to be your job. But then he saw that Lefty had a great athletic skill, especially in baseball, and his dad was a baseball fan. And he said, if you can make a go of it playing baseball, go for it.
John, can we contribute through Venmo or
Yes.
PayPal?
Yes, you can. Like I said, just email me and I'll give you all the details. And it's great to see you, Pat.
Good to see you, John.
Cheers.
I'll do that.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So John, as I mentioned, has a number of other baseball films. And while we're waiting to see for Shane to join us, would you take a few minutes if there's not any other questions about the Lefty projects? And I'm excited about that, especially about the grave marker. And if there's ways we can support that restoration as well. But if there's not any other questions about that, would you mind taking a few minutes and telling us a bit about the sweet spot where we can visit to see some of the rest of your work?
Yes. Well, number one, the sweet spot, that's my my baseball multimedia project. And I have a Patreon site, and it's called The Sweet Spot. And every month we gather to watch one of the films I've made. Anybody can watch that. And we also have a monthly vodcast where we have a topic and we bring in experts and we have a little panel discussion and everybody participates in that. We're going to be having our next session will be on February the 16th, featuring Norm Coleman, who I believe is a SABR member here in San Francisco. Norm has a staggering personal museum of San Francisco and New York Giants relics and memorabilia that is truly stunning. So we're going to be meeting with Norm on that. But as far as my films are available through a variety of platforms, I'll deal with the most well-known and most accessible of them, which is Amazon Prime. And I have 3 films on there. One of them is called Haino, A Century in the Bleachers, which is about the legendary sports writer Arnold Haino, who wrote A Day in the Bleachers, one of baseball's most iconic books. And it's a biography of Arnold. And another is called The Day the World Series Stopped, and that is my film about the 1989 World Series earthquake in Game 3. I happened to be attending the game as a fan, but I was also there with a VHS camcorder and a 35mm SLR with bandoliers of film to capture my first experience at a World Series, of course, featuring the A's and the Giants. And of course, the story took this, tragic left turn. So you can find that there as well as another, it's a 9-part piece, and it's called Shutout, The Battle American Women Waged to Play Baseball. And that came out in 2017. And that really kind of gives a history of the challenges American women have had trying to play, coach, or umpire baseball, but also feature strides that have been made and a glimpse of the future, and featuring some of the most iconic women to participate in baseball. We've got Isla Borders, there's women from the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, umpire Perry Barber. It's a really, really fascinating piece of business. And you can find those 2. If you, the Tubi, Tubi, is another streamer, and those you can watch for free. I made a film called Ball 4 Turns 40, and that was a special event created by the Baseball Reliquary on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the publication of Ball 4 in September of 2010. And Jim Bouton came out, and there's this cavalcade of wonderful people from baseball. Ron Shelton, the director of Bull Durham, talks about the cultural impact of the book. Jean Hastings Ardell, one of an iconic baseball author in her own right, participated. Tommy Davis, who was on the pilots with Bouton, Greg Goosen, who's a hilarious guy, who was also on the Mets and the pilots with Jim Bouton too. So that's available, as well as The Adventures of Superfan, which is about another SABR San Francisco member, Charles Fracchia Jr. And Charles is probably out at the Fan Fest today, which is why he's not here. But if you don't know Charles, he's a wonderfully eccentric Giants baseball fan. And Charles went on a 35-year quest to get his 1979 San Francisco Giants media guide signed by every coach and player that appeared in it. If you know about media guides, it's got minor leaguers in it. It's a lot of people.
Luckily, it was the 40-man roster and not the ones that have today.
There's
Hello,
Charles.
John.
Hey, Charles. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Good. So that's just some of those pieces. And if you join the Sweet Spot on Patreon, all of my films are available there. I believe it's $8 a month for that, and then for $3 a month you can participate in our monthly vodcasts, and all of those proceeds go to funding my documentary work, and a lot of that stuff is being channeled towards the Lefty O'Doul project at this point.
The other thing I was going to make just a suggestion on going to Lefty's, and cleaning the thing. And if we're going on his birthday, don't we need to bring a birthday cake?
That's certainly going to be in the mix. I'm going to be talking to the administrators and facilitators at the cemetery to talk about what we'd like to do to make sure what we do is dignified, respectful, and appropriate. But Charles, I think that's a wonderful idea.
I remember, SABR event in San Francisco where we had a cake for Babe Ruth's birthday out at SF State. Marlene was there.
I remember, and I think I have a picture someplace of a birthday cake for Lefty. So this will be great. And John, whatever I can do to help with that, please let me know. I would encourage everyone to take a look at Patreon or Tubi. John, will you include all of those links in the information you send us to send out?
I will.
I was at the
Go ahead.
Oh, I was at the 89 World Series. I was also at Norm's condo in Millbrae, and Norm and Tom O'Doul and Perry Barber and others. I think I recognize one other person that just spoke, are members of the New York Giants Preservation Society. And I'm one of the few in that group that was old enough to go to the Polo Grounds. My folks took me there when I was 2 years old in 1949, and my pop took me and brother and cousins to see the last Giant Dodger game played in New York on my 10th birthday in 1957.
Awesome.
That's great. That's great. John, thank you as always. Your work is wonderful, and you're always so willing to meet with us and share that. And we look forward to supporting you in whatever ways we can.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again. Thanks again. And I see that Shane has joined us. Hi, Shane.
Hi, Marlene.
I'm guessing you don't have. Do you have a presentation, or are you just going to chat with us?
No, I'll just chat, and I admit I'll be winging it a little bit, but hopefully I know my business well enough to suffice for now.
Right. So I'm happy that Shane can join us. Shane runs JapanBall, which, as most of you know, is a company that does tours of Japan and elsewhere. And he does tours in California, games and tours in California as well. And last year, our chapters joined JapanBall for a visit to the Ballers game, and we were hoping to make that an annual event. But there's some exciting news coming out of JapanBall with some resources that are now going to be available to us, and some other plans for the future. So, excuse me, Shane, again, I'm glad that you could join us for an update.
Yeah, thanks, Marlene. I appreciate the opportunity, and good to see everyone, and you too, John. Happy to be following you. Love everything John does. So if you haven't seen his stuff, please do, because it's awesome. And there's a lot of alignment with the sort of things that JapanBall does too. So yeah, I figured I could just kind of give an update of what we're up to. I think that most of all our offerings and what we're up to at JapanBall would be of some interest to anyone who's involved in SABR. There's a big overlap in the SABR community and our community, which is basically just means it's all people who just love baseball, super passionate about the game. love all forms of the game. Of course, we are more internationally focused, Japan being our main focus. So at our heart, we are a tour company. Like, we like to bring people around the world with a baseball focus and introduce new cultures via baseball, Japan obviously being the main one. But we also are just a source for information about Japanese baseball, whether it's resources or interest articles that are just stories of interest, videos. When we started back in 1999, was when JapanBall started. Bob Bavasi of the Bavasi family is the founder of JapanBall. At that time, it was after Nomo came, but before Ichiro, and there wasn't a lot out there on Japanese baseball in the English language. And so obviously now there is more, and there's a general awareness thanks to guys like Shohei Ohtani, who I'm wearing his jersey right now. I won't wear a Shohei Ohtani Dodgers jersey, but I'll happily wear a Shohei Ohtani Team Japan jersey. What Marlene, I think, was alluding to in part was this year we put out this travel guide, JapanBall's travel guide to Japanese baseball. I admit our tours are not for everyone, mostly just because the time and money it takes to go on one of our tours. They're pretty intense journeys through Japan to watch baseball. So we put out this book for people who want to do a more DIY trip to Japan. It's available as an ebook, as an audiobook. The author of the book is Gabriel Lerman. And yep, there's Gabe. I'm the publisher and editor. And Gabe is a voice actor, so he did the audio version of the book. And then it's also available on paperback from Amazon or print on demand. So if you're interested, you can go to japanball.com and check out our shop. And that's where the book is. The idea is to, it's a travel guide, just like any other travel guide you might have, except this one is focused on baseball. But there's a chapter for all 12 NPB teams, and we talk about what to do when you're in the neighborhood, where to buy tickets as far as seat location and how to actually buy them, histories of the teams, and just everything you need to know, assuming maybe you don't know anything about Japanese baseball and you're seeing it for the first time, or maybe you are someone who has a lot of interest in Japanese baseball. I still think that there's still a lot of stuff in there for you. So I'm really excited about our travel guide because Japanese baseball has never been more popular than it is right now. And we want to just introduce the beauty that is Japanese baseball for anyone who hasn't seen it. It's pretty phenomenal experience, unlike anything you'll see in America, that's for sure. And if you do want to see it with our tours, I think I'll segue into sharing just what our tour offerings are this year. So we have, in a few weeks, our Okinawa spring training trip. The NPB teams in Japan do their spring training down in Okinawa. And KBO in Korea also does. So we'll be visiting a couple KBO camps, NPB camps, going to spring training games, etc. In May, we have our annual flagship tour, in which, if you want to do the whole thing, we visit all 12 NPB ballparks in Japan. We travel up and down the whole country, go to one home game of all 12 teams in 12 stadiums. That is over the course of like 16, 17 days. So we also cut it into smaller segments, knowing that not everyone can do that long of a trip. So we have shorter segments or just a Tokyo only segment. That's our tour we've been doing for 25 years and is kind of our bread and butter. Highly recommend it. But we also are offering a couple tours to Japan later in the year. One of them in August, which is more of a alternative NPB alternative baseball tour. We're going to go to minor league games, independent games, women's college championship, the Koshien High School Championship, which is, for those who don't know, it's just like the biggest baseball event in Japan. It's a really cool event that goes on every year that I could segue for a long time on, but I'll resist. And And so that's an alternative baseball tour. We'll still go to 1 or 2 NPB games, go to some sumo, different Japanese sports. And then in September, we have another kind of smaller NPB tour. So we have a bunch of offerings in Japan this year. We also have a South Korea tour in which we visit all 9 KBO ballparks. You can combine that with the Japan one. We have a Dominican Republic tour in the winter in November, in which you can visit all of the Lidom, Dominican Winter League ballparks. And I'll just encourage people to go to our website to learn more, JapanBall.com. So I'm tempted to get into more detail, but I'll try to keep this more quick, because I also wanted to mention something that's cool that maybe is not for everyone on this call, but maybe you know someone who would be into it. This year we are bringing players, like youth players, amateur players, to Japan, and we also offer to the DR to go play abroad. So we have 3 groups of players going this summer. It's not just like a tournament. It's an immersive cultural experience in which you're playing with and against Japanese counterparts. We'll do like joint games where we're mixed with the Japanese and American kids, so you're forced to communicate and like kind of bond and have a cool cultural experience mixing with them, and doing practices where the Japanese coaches will show their way of doing things to the American kids, and playing games and competing, sightseeing, making sure we don't miss out on the off the field stuff too. And then the last playing opportunity we also have is a fantasy camp in the Dominican Republic. So that's like an adult playing opportunity. In the DR, there's a former big leaguer on every corner playing dominoes, drinking rum, and Presidente beer. So there's like a lot of opportunities to mingle with former players, a lot of access. It's a very welcoming baseball culture. I lived in the DR for 2.5 years and worked in baseball down there. So it's like a second home to me. And we thought it'd be really cool. It is our first time trying it, to have a fantasy camp-like experience for adult players. And you got a beach vacation in the winter, and you get to play baseball with former big leaguers and hopefully meet some big names, and just have like a great tropical Caribbean baseball vacation. So that's the quick rundown of all our offerings. I would love, Marlene and I have talked about going to another local meetup at the Oakland Ballers game. We just got to pick a date for that. Definitely would love to do that, to have an opportunity to see everyone there. We're also looking at doing a similar type event in Arizona, either around the Arizona Fall League or the Mexican Baseball Fiesta, which is an annual event in Arizona where the Mexican Winter League teams come in Arizona and have a tournament, which is a really cool, festive event. So I'd love to do those meetups. We have other domestic stuff like the Alaska Midnight Sun game, which I'm sure most people on this call have heard of it. If you haven't been, it's an incredible just baseball festival on the summer solstice in Fairbanks. So we're going to bring a group up to Fairbanks for that, and beforehand go to Seattle as an optional thing, because you got to fly through Seattle anyways, and go to maybe an indie ball game and a Mariners game before heading up to Fairbanks. So yeah, we got tons of tour offerings. Everyone who goes on these trips are the type of people who go to minor league games, go to spring training, go to college games. They just love the game for what it is. We have some pretty awesome trivia, like constant going on amongst the guests. And, it's like you can travel with people where you can just talk baseball all day long with them, which is my type of vacation. And I think that might be the case for a lot of the people on this call too. So again, thanks so much, Marlene, for having me. I'm sorry for spewing all this. I just wanted to take advantage of the opportunity, because I know that anyone who joins any of these things, whether it's the local meetup, whether it's the travel guide, whether it's our full tour, seeing all 12 Japanese ballparks, I know you all would love it. I'd love to meet you. I'm based in Santa Cruz, and Bay Area, born and raised, and I always love meeting fellow baseball lovers from around the area. So thank you again. Happy SABR Day, and appreciate it.
Shane, you're busier than ever. I hope
Yeah.
you can fit in a Ballers game. Do you go on all of these tours yourself?
Most
of them?
that has been my goal. we have a full-time guide in Japan now. And the goal for me has always been to have enough trips where it's impossible for me to go. And I think I've reached that point. So yeah, just organizing them from afar is demanding enough. And I go on a lot of them. I mean, that's why I love my job, because I get to go on them. But I can pick and choose now which ones I want to go on, and we have really good local guides in every country. There's one more domestic tour I didn't mention that I'd like to, and it's another one that I'm not going on because I have to be in Japan with one of the youth trips. But we're partnering with Sports Travel and Tours, who's the official tour provider of the Hall of Fame, to do a Cooperstown induction weekend this year. Because of Ichiro. You know, we've been anticipating Ichiro being inducted for a long time, and I didn't want to try to invent the wheel when there's so many great tour operators doing Cooperstown stuff. So we just partnered with them, and Cooperstown has a Japanese baseball exhibit that Robert Fitz, big SABR member and friend of JapanBall, is curating a lot of that. And so that's another really cool thing to go to. It's a really big Hall of Fame class this year, which I'm excited about.
Yeah.
And with the Japanese exhibit and with Ichiro there, it's going to be a really special weekend. So I'm not leading that one, even though I wish I could go.
Right.
And we have local guides in place, and now I've got to the point where I can bring my family on some of these trips. Yeah. And I can take a back seat a little bit. But yeah, I'm definitely keeping busy. That's for sure, especially with these new.
I'm also glad to hear that you're going to check out some women's games. In Japan, you'll do that. Will you do that on the Korea trip?
I'm not sure. I'm not aware of any women's baseball in Korea.
Okay.
So I got to look into that. It's not something we've brought up in Korea. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. I got to ask our local guy what he knows.
Are the youth games, and in the Dominican, are the youth games co-ed, or are they?
Yeah, anyone is
boys
totally, yeah. And it's casual, because it's like travel baseball is very much like focused on tournaments and like kind of the whole idea of like exposure for scholarships and like what's the minimum number of games. And we're making our trips more like it's a whole family vacation. Everyone, like parents, siblings, we have a pretty decent age range for each trip, because it's not like really serious about competitive. It's really about the like baseball cultural exchange and using baseball as a vehicle to, you know, have these cool playing on-field experiences, but really like it's about the cultural experience. So yeah, definitely girls and boys are welcome on those trips. Same with the fantasy camp. On our trips in general, we have a higher ratio of women than some might expect, just being a baseball trip, because our fans are like, the people who come on our trips are the really hardcore fans, which are not they kind of buck the stereotypes, I guess. You know, it's not just like a bunch of like beer drinking rowdy people or whatever, you know. It's like these are serious baseball fans. And in Japan, we've been trying to incorporate we brought a group to a women's softball game, professional softball game last year. We've been trying to incorporate women's baseball, and so we're finally doing it this year. They have a club, it's like semi-pro league. They have the high school championship and the college championship. So I think that we're going to be able to align with the college championship this year. And it's our goal to have it be a regular part of our tours to experience that, because in Japan, it's like much more the norm to have. I mean, it's not huge, but you know, in America, it's more of a new thing. I feel like where there's a groundswell these days to get girls to play baseball. And in Japan, it's been more of a thing. Like their women's national team competes internationally.
Very well, they compete.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we're excited about that, and hopefully we'll keep doing it. And yeah, I'm going to ask our Korea tour guide if he can fit anything in. I think that's a good idea.
That's great. We'll be keeping in touch on many fronts there. And thank you for taking the time to join us today. Shane's at a birthday party, so we'll let you go back and eat cake, since we've been talking about birthday cake already. So
Thanks.
Enjoy the cake.
I'll hang out for a little bit longer, but yeah, then I'll step out soon.
Yeah, this is
Thanks.
great. Tony, are you here? Tony's in New York, so he may be distracted for a minute. Well, our final presenter today is Larry Hausner. Larry Hausner is a former sportscaster and educator. He's the host and producer for Sports Spotlight, which is a weekly television show, and is now a podcast host for Say Baseball. And I've chatted with Larry, I've listened to some of his podcasts. I think we are in for a very entertaining presentation this afternoon. Larry's going to talk about his book Save Baseball, and some of the things that, as we know, are the challenges that Major League Baseball and other baseball is facing, and some ideas for saving the game we love. Larry, I see you. Yes.
Well, it's an honor to be here
Welcome.
with thank you. And it's an honor to be here with your chapter today. Happy Saber Day, or everybody. Thanks for the introduction. I assume you can see my screen. I came in right before John presented. John,
Yes.
great stuff. I'm looking forward to diving deeper into your work. And Shane, that sounds exciting. I've got to get on one of those tours. There's no doubt about it. I'm thinking the KBO is, because I write about it in my book, so I think that might be the place I start. But good stuff. And Marlene, I want to be respectful of your time. Can you give me an idea of how much time we've got so I can stay within those parameters?
We've got quite a bit of time. The meeting runs till one-ish, so you've got
Excellent.
time, and we can talk baseball.
Great.
Time is good.
Good, because this
Thank
tends
you.
to lend itself to a conversation. So after I kind of give you the overview of the book, but it's an honor to be able to spend some time with your chapter. I'm a member of the San Diego chapter, although I recently moved into the Valley of the Sun here in Arizona. And I'll tell you one thing I'm excited about is pitchers and catchers reporting, because I've got a plethora of teams here in spring training about to converge on the valley here. So I'm excited to be able to see some baseball right here in my backyard. But just want to tell you a little bit about the book project. And again, I love to get the feedback and conversation going since we've got a little bit of time. But again, my background is I was a sportscaster for about a decade. I primarily in Southern California, but I had a television show called Sports Spotlight, but it also provided opportunities for me to cover the Angels, Dodgers, kind of as their sideline reporter back in the day, and had that experience before I went into the field of education. And somewhat semi-retired right now. I'm an adjunct professor at the University of Southern California, USC. But this book and baseball in and of itself has always been my passion. Played in college a little bit. And the idea behind the book, and the book basically is about overcoming issues that the game is dealing with. And it really started, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So here's some of the topics I'm going to cover, but let's just get into it. And first of all, this is how the idea for this book, Save Baseball, A Prescription for the Major Leagues, was born. There's my son a few years ago. We're at Nationals Park there. My family and I lived in Southern California before I moved over here forever. We were frequently going to Padre games, Angel games, Dodger games. And my son Jacob, one day when I asked him if he'd like to go to the All-Star game in San Diego, which happened to be on his birthday, said to me, "You know what? Baseball's boring." And I'm like, what did he just say? I didn't know if he was being a defiant 16-year-old or if he really meant it. But this was a kid that played baseball his whole life. Love the game. And by the way, today at 24, he is an enormous baseball fan. I'm happy to report. But at that moment, it got me thinking. And I kind of just had that idea and that conversation with him swimming around in my mind for quite some time, thinking, I don't think baseball's boring. My friends don't think it is. But what about that generation? What about his friends? And so that led me to some research. And what I found was a couple of things. That my concern was that baseball was going to be facing a cliff. We always hear about this financial cliff. Well, this is a baseball cliff because the average fan is 57 years old. And that's just concerning to me. because what's going to happen in 10, 20 years? Who's going to be attending baseball games? Who's going to be fans of the game if we're having younger generations of fans not interested? So I started to dive into research, and really what I found was um, that baseball has been hemorrhaging fans by the millions over the last decade plus. And so attendance is down, fan interest is down. And that's what the research told me. And then I started to go and talk to those in the game. So I interviewed, as you can see here, I started with Bill Bavasi. I'll share that story in a moment. Started with him, and then I talked to executives in the game, former executives, current and former players, managers, anybody that had a pulse on the game. I was interested to learn, A, do they see what I see? Do they agree with the research? Every single one of them said yes. So when I, first of all, before I wrote a word, I talked to Bill, and I've known Bill for a long time, and I've known him twofold. Number one, when I was a sportscaster, and number two, when I was a school principal. His wife, Tracy, worked for me. She was a teacher on my staff. So I asked Billy what his thoughts were about this idea that baseball is confronted with these issues. But really, my book is not just about saying, here are the problems, and hence the title, A Prescription for Major League Baseball. I'm more focused on solutions. I want to know how we can help the game. And he said, you're spot on, and you got to run with it. And so we spent a lot of time talking about the issues, and I like to say that Bill, who was a former Angels and Mariners general manager, and he was also assistant GM for the Reds. He also ran the Arizona Fall League. He's retired now, but has a long career in Major League Baseball. And of course, I say he's part of baseball royalty. I heard somebody earlier mention the Bavasi family, and we know so well that they are just that. So once I got his blessing, if you will, I dove deep into the topic. I spent a lot of time during COVID writing the book because people were sitting around and had nothing to do. So I had a captive audience that I could talk to people in the game that I knew, and it just dominoed. Like once I talked to one person, they said, you need to talk to this person. And it just kept going deeper and deeper. And that's how I had an opportunity to talk to people like Joe Madden and Buck Showalter. And on this screen right here, on this screenshot, you see Scott Carl, left-hand pitcher, pitched in the big leagues for about 8 years, most notably with the Brewers and the Rockies, and a good friend of mine. I've known him for 30 years. And so I reached out to people like Scott and wanted to know, what were his feelings being a former player. And, he made comments such as, I can't even watch baseball. It's just not the same game that I grew up with playing, even at the major league level. And Marlene mentioned that I have a YouTube channel, Save Baseball, and I'd love you to take a peek at it when you have time. I launched it a couple of months ago, and Scott's going to be a guest this week on that channel, and we're going to dive into some of these topics a little bit deeper. But the issues are there. I mentioned earlier about fan interest being down at the gate, as well as globally. Before Shohei Ohtani came along, and Shane, that's a pretty cool jersey, and I agree with you. I wouldn't wear it I wouldn't wear a Dodger jersey if you paid me, but certainly the one you're wearing is worth getting for sure. But before Shohei came into Major League Baseball, and that global fandom that he brings, there was, out of the top 100 most popular athletes, there were 0 baseball players, and that just shocked me when I read that. Certainly Shohei has changed that, but it's a concern of mine of what we see on the screen about the game lacking that interest. And, I'm wearing my shirt that says, Save Baseball, and I have a few of these golf shirts and T-shirts and whatnot. And, I was at a volleyball tournament. My daughter's a coach, and this one gentleman stopped me and he said, Save Baseball from what? And I said, from becoming a niche sport. And he said, amen to that. So that's really what the crux of the book was about. some of the things we talk about that I talked about with people like Justin Turner here was about pace of play, which we've seen now with the pitch clock and things that I wrote about and suggested. By the time my book was published, I had to take some of that stuff out because Major League Baseball had instituted some of it. But Justin had a complete opposite opinion of pace of play. He said, "Nope, I think that that's garbage." And I thought, wow. I mean, you think that he would see what we as fans were seeing, where the pace of the game had just come to a grinding halt at times. Even Joe Madden, when I was talking to Joe about it, he said, if you think watching baseball is boring, he said, try managing and coaching, especially in playoffs, where those games are 4.5 hours long. He said it's, even from a manager's perspective, he said it was tough. I also talked with as I mentioned Scott earlier, but Rich Gossage had comments about, he can't even watch the game. It's beer league softball. It's a home run or it's a strikeout. So the game on the field has changed. George Will, I mentioned to him when I interviewed George about Justin Turner, and he said, well, Justin is going to say that pace of play is not an issue because baseball's a fun game to play. And when you're playing it, you're not looking at your watch, right? You're having a good time. But the interesting conversation I had with Buck Showalter on many different levels, and I just share something here that he told me about the way the game is played today. Like, don't blame the players. They're rewarded for the way the game is played. They're rewarded for not like we saw growing up with 2 strikes, shortening up, putting the ball in play. He said they're rewarded for taking a swing for the fences, but he did say this to me, which really resonated. We've lost the shame of striking out. That has completely disappeared from the game. I also spent a lot of time talking about youth participation. Glad to hear some of that conversation earlier about your trip, Shane. Let's get those kids excited about the game of baseball because it's changed a lot since when a lot of us played. Where, when I was a kid and played Little League Baseball, all I needed was a glove and cleats. That was it. I didn't even need a ride to the ballpark. I rode my bike. But today, when I managed and coached Little League and high school, which I did, everybody's got a helmet, a bag, bats, plural, and they're spending a lot of money. Tournaments. These are not cheap endeavors for parents, and it's sadly pricing some people out of the game. On this particular slide, I share a picture of a good buddy of mine, Trey Hillman, managed the Kansas City Royals. But Shane, you might know Trey because he managed in Japan. He managed in KBO. He's the only person to ever win a championship in both Japan and in the KBO. He's also been a major league coach for about 20 years and somebody I leaned on a lot throughout the process of writing the book. But just a couple things to talk about on this slide is Major League Baseball needing to really do a better job of branding itself. We've seen the NFL, the NBA have a global presence, and Major League Baseball needs to do a better job of that. And part of that is increasing social media presence. And in my book, talking to executives, learning from those organizations that have really done these things the right way. You'll read in my book where I showcase a lot about the Milwaukee Brewers, the second smallest market. Somehow they still manage to draw between 2 and 3 million fans every single year. They're competitive. How do they do it? They know how to brand. They know how to market to all generations of baseball fan. Their in-venue experience is incredible. Now, I've had the chance to go to most of the stadiums, including the Giants ballpark in there in San Francisco, which is phenomenal. It lends itself to what I'd like to see, and that is a place for all fans. Now, I also talk a lot about the Orioles because before they became, recently a good team again, they still drew pretty well. That was a destination ballpark to go to because it just lent itself to a social atmosphere. Now, I'm a baseball fan who likes to sit there and watch every pitch. You might be like that too. I don't really want to hang out in a bar. If I'm at the game, I want to be at the game. But that's not how the younger generation consumes baseball, and we really need to be cognizant and open to that. I talk about instant replay, the intent of it. These are things that players, current and former, have an opinion on, such as, it was not the intent of baseball replay to see if the guy's foot slid off the bag by that much. But it's become that kind of finite decision maker in the game. And we often have to sit there and wait for those situations to take place. One of the things I talk about on my YouTube channel as well as in the book is I think that we talk, especially this time of year, where we see, the Dodgers spending hundreds of $millions on a payroll. I mean, that's mind-blowing. But you know what? They're simply going to pay the $100 million luxury tax fee and go about their merry way. So, there's an outcry. We need a salary cap like the NFL.
Yes. Yes.
But that's going to be a really tough sell to Major League Baseball's Player Association. We know that. So I advocate first a spending floor. And what that means is that all those teams that get that money from the Dodgers and the Yankees and all those teams that are overspending, they need to take that money and put it back on the product on the field. That'll help baseball not have, teams that are, not just not competitive by May or June, but teams that we still want to go see. And that's not happening. For example, if I was a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, and maybe you are, I'd be outraged. Angels, same way. They're pocketing the money. They're not investing it in their team. Now, you know who'd love that idea of a spending floor? Major League Baseball's Player Association, because that's more money in their pockets. Then we can start to talk about perhaps the salary cap, the top level of what we can do, because really punishing teams like the Dodgers, it's not working because they simply just write a check. I won't talk too much about the book process, but I will say this, that my publisher challenged me because I thought I was done. And if you've ever written a book, there's a point in time where you just want to look at it again. I'm done with it. But they told me I wasn't done. And they said, you need to put in some more time, Larry. We need 50,000 more words. And I'm like, what? And what they did was they introduced me to SABR. And I'm so grateful. And that's why I want to just spend a moment to say, SABR made my project and my book so much better than it ever would have been, because I was able to rely on current, credible research that, I could still be writing this book. There was so much there. I finally had to stop and be done with it. But SABR was a godsend to me, and it provided such more valuable and rich research. And my message to a lot of you, because I've done numerous talks with SABR folks, is either think people have thought about writing a book or you're in the process of it. And I'm just here to say, do it. I want to encourage you that you can do it. The hardest part is to start, but it's a labor of love, and you have to have a thick skin when you have a publisher that tells you it's not good enough. And I would say that the best part is this right here, where I get to talk to baseball fans like you. So I would love to open it up to any questions or comments that you all might have about what I've shared in terms of the struggles that I see with baseball that the experts have told me. But I'm really more interested in what's coming up with solutions to overcome some of those things.
May I ask a question?
You sure may. Yes, Marshall.
Okay. Well, there's a Players Association in the NBA, the NHL, and the NFL. They have a salary cap. I think an excellent idea is a salary floor. But I don't think that Major League Baseball players would go for a salary cap, even if there was a salary floor, because they're mercenaries and they're greedy. And the pitch clock has helped bring my interest back in the game. I grew up loving playing the game and followed the game, was an old New York Giants baseball fan. The biggest problem is no salary cap. So the question I have is, why does it work you take the Warriors, for example. They have to get rid of great bench players to sign their best starting players. And that's when the Warriors started to go downhill, when they started DiVincenzo, for example, and others. To be under the cap, the Warriors had to get rid of great bench players. So if it works in the other major sports, it seems like the commissioners in the other sports have more power, and the baseball commissioner is just, he succumbs to the whims and ways of the
Of
players.
the owners.
What's your take on why it works in the other major sports and why it won't, why it can't be enforced in baseball? Let them strike.
I think you answered the question, Mars. I think that it does start with leadership in Major League Baseball. I know commissioners, for example, in the NFL, they're paid by the owners. And I think that the same is true. And Major League Baseball has an incredibly strong players union, always has. Major League Baseball is also protected by, antitrust exemption, and I think that other sports aren't. I do think that something has to be a tipping point for this to happen in terms of Major League Baseball initiating a salary cap. Clearly, it's not working the way it is now. Either, I guess, take that competitive balance tax and make it even more, make it sting even more, because it doesn't seem to be working.
Owners like Steve Cohen and the Dodgers ownership and the Yankees, they laugh at that, a luxury tax. It's like chump change. Here's a quarter. Here's a dime and a nickel. Who cares? The thing is, it's killing the game. In the 90s, I think there were 8 different World Series champions. Right now, you just you might as well just give it to the Dodgers. And the biggest hypocrisy of all is gambling, advertising gambling. So you might as well reinstate Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson. If there's gambling, this is absurd. It's such hypocrisy. It's turned me off so much that the only thing that brought me back was the pitch clock. Now, if they can get rid of the ghost runner, then I'll be a little happier.
I agree with the ghost runner. It seems like it's like wiffle ball back in my neighborhood when we had ghost runners. I think that's something that needs to change. And I think what's happened, and these are words of other folks. In fact, I did a previous session with the Las Vegas chapter this morning, and I think that there comes a time when those of us, and I'm going to consider myself a baseball purist and traditionalist, we got to put the game ahead of ourselves sometimes, right? So the pitch clock, Mars, years ago I would have said, no way, I don't want any part of it. And I'm a former pitcher. I don't want any part of that. But now, like you, I see the benefit behind it. One of the things I think about the pitch clock, and while I like to see that the game has been, it's been moving along, obviously, is unintended consequences of some of these decisions. And I think that one of them could be, and I'm a little fearful of this, injuries. Now, the pitch clock is not new in the minor leagues. It's been around for a while. They test drove it there for quite a while at all levels. So the younger pitchers who've come up are used to it. It's not new to them. It's not novel. They have worked with it. It's the veteran pitchers that haven't, that I'm keeping an eye on, especially here in years 2 and next year 3 of the pitch clock, just to see if there's, and I hope it doesn't happen, that there could be some unintended consequences with injuries for some of those pitchers that are now rushed to get back up on top of the mound and deliver the pitch, which we want them to do. But I'm just curious. It's kind of like the instant replay. The unintended consequence for me of replay has been we've lost the excitement of watching managers argue. That's gone. How sad is that? I mean, did we all not love to watch Earl Weaver and Billy Martin lose their minds out there, and Lou Piniella kick his hat and throw dirt on everybody? That's gone. It's almost fabricated. It's almost fabricated. I mentioned Trey Hillman. earlier when he was managing the Royals, and I had a chance to spend some time with him about a month ago down in his house in Texas. And I said, we were talking about this, and he said, you know what? He said, whenever I'd get kicked out of a game, it was fake. He said, I would take the umpire, like the third base ump, and say, let's take a little walk to the outfield so nobody could really hear us. And he'd say, listen, I need to be thrown out of this game. I gotta rally the troops. So he would say, you know what we're gonna do? And the umpire would say, are we really gonna do this? Yeah, we're gonna do this. And it was all almost staged to get his team to be, to fire them up. It wasn't because there was really a bad call, because they have replay. I think that we've lost. That's an unintended consequence of replay. I want to get things right. That's just my nature, but at what cost? It's not as exciting. It's not as fun. I can't even remember the last time I saw a manager truly go sideways, which they used to all the time. And, it was hilarious to watch it. It was exciting. It was fun. Or
Here's what I missed the most.
Yeah.
The loss of the complete game. To see Marischal against Drysdale or Koufax or Bob Gibson, and it's a 0-0, or it's a low scoring game, 1-0, 2-1 tie game. These kids are trained to only go 4 innings. When you have your marquee matchup, they're only going to go 5 innings. It's not the marquee matchup. It's a bullpen game. I can't stand it. That's why basketball is my favorite sports now.
Those are good points, and I would imagine most of us agree with you, Mars, and thank you for bringing them up. Dan mentioned in the chat something called reversible baseball that UCB coach ran. Can you tell us quickly what that is, Dan? Are you still here, Dan? Yes. Or do you want us to go look it up later? I'm not familiar with it at all. Can anybody give us the 2-minute explanation? Okay, we'll go read
I've
about
clicked
it.
on the link. I'm going to read it. I'll read it a little later. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Dan, that's good stuff.
Yeah, thank you very much. I too used to think I could watch a baseball game for hours and hours, but I have come to appreciate a shorter game, especially on cold nights when you're out there and it's getting 10 innings, 11 innings, and it's it's 10 or 11 or 12. But the Ghost Runner was not in the World Series, right? They did not allow that in the World Series. So why? So how do they? I never saw an explanation of that. Did anyone hear an explanation?
Well, it's supposed to be to prevent injuries.
During the season. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the intent. But the thing is, it's just ridiculous to put a runner on second so you're going to shorten the game. You can't predict injuries, but it takes the fun out of it. I mean, it's so easy to score if the players try to move a runner up to third, and then a ground ball or a sacrifice fly could bring it in. It's just too easy. It takes the fun out of it. A lot of things, the powers that be. I wish there was a Sherman Antitrust Act, by the way, for baseball.
Yes,
if you remember
agree.
that, to take the
make
monopoly out of
points.
Rockefeller's hands.
Right. Folks, anybody else have questions, comments, either for Larry or and about the game in general?
Yes,
or
John.
things you'd like to see? Where's John?
He was waving his hand.
John, take yourself off mute, please.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
So I wanted to get Larry's thoughts on this. I also want to make a comment on it because I too, Larry, had been tracking, the game hemorrhaging fans, and that the demographic was mostly white, male, people over 50 who are all going to die in the next 20 to 30 years. Hate to say that, but baseball was scrambling to come up. What are we going to do to bring more fans into the game? Because even using social media and a bunch of other stuff, they were not attracting anybody younger than baby boomers. They didn't care. So they made a Faustian bargain with big gambling. And it is completely opaque how much money is coming into Major League Baseball and how that money is being distributed. But it was very interesting how once this began being instituted, and now what, 36 states that have legalized gambling, quote unquote, we saw Fernando Tatis got a $350 million 10-year contract. And I really think that it's the gambling money that is funding these enormous contracts, because the money at the gate, all that stuff, the numbers were going down. But now that they're in bed with big gambling, their attitude is, hey, when people have a stake in the game, they're going to watch. They're going to go to the game. And it's a huge revenue generator for Major League Baseball. And those of us like me who feel it's a terrible thing, it's unfortunately Major League Baseball sees it as a parachute. What are your thoughts?
Well, I actually write about it in the book, John, and I did have folks that know the gambling world better than I would say that it's going to save baseball. I mean, because of what you're saying, it's going to pump money into the game, but also the contention from some of those folks, their positioning is it's going to keep fans interested in baseball. If they've, and I'm not advocating we all become, gamblers. I'm not, but those that are have said, well, if you've got some money on the game, if it's 8-0, you're going to watch to see if it, if it's 9-10 runs, if you bet the overs or whatever. But that's kind of their thought process. And even since I wrote the book, John, you're right. There's so many more states that have instituted and permitted a legalized sports gambling. I moved over here to Arizona. I actually have a brand new casino. You walk in, you think you're in Vegas, except there's no cigarette smoke, which is really nice. But you can bet on the games. It still is, to me, it's mind-blowing that it's not just Las Vegas or Reno anymore. It's all over the nation.
And there's betting parlors inside the ballpark at Wrigley Field, where 100 years ago, that was the same city where the greatest scandal in Major League Baseball occurred. And a lot of people feel like it's only a matter of time before a major scandal blows up in the face of Major League Baseball. And we almost saw it last year when the Golden Goose, Ohtani, was potentially, of course, it turned out he was not involved in a massive gambling scandal. Can you imagine the repercussions of the Golden Goose of the game being caught up in a gambling scandal? That could be potentially a mortal blow to Major League Baseball.
And I don't think that story is over, John. I just read something this morning, and I'm not a conspiracy theory person, but I am very curious. And I just had this conversation with my cousin this morning as to why that story disappeared as fast as it did. And I'm curious as to why nobody in the media or these pseudo media people, kind of like me, I got a podcast, have not decided to really dig into what we're starting to see even, because you're right. If that was true, that would be horrific for the game of baseball. I just don't know if that story is over. Tara, you have your hand raised.
Tara.
Yeah.
Tara.
Hey, sorry, I can't turn on my video right now, but so my thing is, I'm from New York, and like 20 years ago, you could, walk up to the stadium on a day, buy a ticket, maybe sit in the bleachers, or maybe it costs you a little bit more. You could do that. It's so much harder. I don't know. And then I know some ballparks are different than others, but certainly for like the Yankees, at least, it is not easy if you want to you can't just decide to go to a baseball game on a whim, usually. It involves so many more steps. It involves, like planning ahead and making sure you have the money, and, because it's not cheap. I was like shocked, when SABR was in Houston like 10 years ago, I was just shocked at how cheap it was compared to what I'm used to in New York. And maybe it's not the same in other cities, but I'd imagine like the big market cities, it is. And I'm wondering necessarily if some of the fan experience, I guess that MLB doesn't really care so much about attendance anymore because, everything else just pays for it. But the fact is ticket prices, I think, are really turning off the average fan. When you look at, again, I hate to use Yankee Stadium as an example, but you watch the game and the front section is completely empty because it's just all corporate boxes that cost $1,000 a piece, literally. So, I don't know if there's anything that can be done about that. But it would seem to me that if you want to get more fans to go to the game, you got to make it affordable. You got to make it so that fans don't have to wait 2 hours online to get into the ballpark. It's the fan experience is just so not what it was. And I go to so few baseball games this year anymore, at least, the major league level, because just the fan experience is just so poor.
And it's in my book, Tara, the cost of living, or the cost of going to a game for family is extremely expensive. And I think the other aspect of, and then maybe this is for other sports too, it's not easy. If you tell me if this has happened to you, because it happened to me, walking up and bought a ticket. I was at a Kansas City Royals game. They weren't drawing many people.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't hand me a ticket. I had to download the app.
Yep.
And I know that. Let's talk about generational challenges with technology. I work for a technology company. I know how to do this, but it's like, I don't want to have to sit there and download your app. And now guess what? After I got your $10 ticket, because that's all it cost me, now I get your Kansas City Royals blowing up my phone like perpetually till I take the app down and then log back in on my home team. I mean, they don't make it easy for you to get a ticket. But you bring up a great point, Pat. Pat, I think you raised your hand.
Charles and Pat.
Okay. I'll let
Sorry,
you.
did I lower mine? I hope I did.
Yeah,
I
I have so many issues with Major League Baseball. I should be in therapy just for that alone. But I have several issues. One is I think it was Dodger Stadium is card only, no cash, which I think is a huge problem for kids. That's why, who's going to give their card to their kid to go to a ball game? That is insane. That's one thing. The other thing that drives me nuts is this whole interleague play thing, because it screws up the schedule badly. Not every team has a geographic rivalry. I had no idea that the Giants their geographic rivalry is now in Sacramento and then in Las Vegas. I always thought it was Oakland. But I'm like, wouldn't it make sense to do like a 3-year swing where you have like West, Central, East, and then alternated? Yeah, you're not going to have, the Yankees and Mets play every year, and then you do a home and away thing. So it's balanced.
It killed the rivalry. They eliminated the Giants played the Dodgers in late July. That was the last they played them in the season.
They've eliminated like divisional rivalry games, which is ridiculous.
Indeed. And you mentioned that natural rival. Do you know the Padres? You know who their rival is according to Major League Baseball? The Mariners.
What?
The Mariner. It takes you almost 2 days to get there. I mean, it's insane.
Well, and you have one that's a National League team and one that's American League team,
Well, how can that be? How did you find that out?
Well, because that's what they've said. That's their so-called.
That's according to Major League Baseball. They're
Yeah.
the same people that had the Braves and the Astros in the NL West, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pat.
So these are the people who failed high school. I mean,
Geography.
They failed geography in school.
That's because they're on their cell phone all the time. All the people sitting around me are on the cell phone, not even watching the game.
Kid. And I went to
That's a whole nother discussion, I think, you guys.
I went to a lot of games as a kid, and it was like, but you'd get, like, if you had perfect attendance, and I didn't, but my sister did, and she would give me her tickets to go to the ball game because she didn't want to go. And I'm like, why don't they do that nowadays for, groups of kids, to go to games? If you want future fans, you got to start with the kids.
Agreed.
Yes. Pat? Oh, sorry. Are you finished? I'm sorry.
I'm finished. I'm sorry. I'm done.
Okay, well, we can come back to this.
Like therapy. I get it.
Yeah.
Just a couple of years ago, there wasn't one black player in a World Series game a few years ago, and that the last time that happened was 1950. So black kids are going for basketball and football because they don't want to languish through the farm systems where they could go directly to the NBA or the NFL. So, and of course, in the underserved community, buying equipment is could be financial hardship for their parents. And all you need to play basketball is just one ball, and you can get that from the Parks Department.
I
So,
I think you've read my book. That's in there.
Thank you for making that's a good point, and that's a whole. There's lots of other discussions we could have to follow up with this. Thank you for bringing that up. And Pat, I don't mean to let you hang out there. Sorry.
Yeah, there were just 2 points that I wanted to bring up on the Shohei matter, or the gambling case that involved his interpreter. There was a big article this morning that I saw that the federal prosecutors, with respect to the sentencing, are making a huge point that after psychological testing, interviews, and everything, the interpreter is not addicted to gambling, is not. And they were trying to use that as a defense for him to reduce the sentence. But if he's not addicted to gambling, there's going to be more to that story. And I know baseball wants to cover it up as quickly as possible. That's a concern. The second thing is, whatever happened to the stigma of striking out? And I know you briefly mentioned that, Larry, but it needs to be brought back. We need to eliminate all these strikeouts and swinging for the fences. And to do that, there needs to be some intrinsic change in the mentality of how the game's played. I love the change with respect to limiting the number of throws to first base, which brings back speed to the game. It encourages the base runners to steal the base after 2 pitches are thrown to first, gives them more opportunity to do so. And I thought that was a positive move. Maybe enlarging the bases also helped in that regard. Those are great moves, but
eliminating the shift, that helped a little.
Eliminating the shift to some degree, but they still shift quite a bit. A lot more so than back in the days when we played the game in little leagues, and you never thought to move over as much as they started doing later. So those are the 2 points that I just wanted to make.
Appreciate that. And quickly on that first note, here was the answer I got from Joe Madden. Analytics departments are dictating everything in baseball. Do you know, for the Angels, their analytics department is connected to the clubhouse? Connected to it. Now, we all love statistics. That's why we're all sitting here. But as Joe Madden and Buck Showalter have told me, it's good information to have. It's very good. It's not the only information we should rely on. So what happens, Pat, is they are telling these players, do not choke up 2 inches on the bat and put the ball in play. You have a better chance of hitting a home run or a double. Joe Madden told me when he was managing the Angels that this would be a conversation where the analytics department, and I'm just going to say it, these are kids from Harvard. They're not former players. They're not scouts. They're kids that are geniuses. They roll in and they tell these players this information. And I asked him the follow-up question, how often did that happen? You're all sitting down. Well, Nancy stood up. Hopefully she sits down. Every day. Every single day. They walked in that clubhouse and told these players, this is what we're going to do today. Joe had enough. When he walked out to the mound and one of the pitchers said, how come you're taking me out? He put it up to the press box and said, it's not my choice. Can you imagine Tommy Lasorda being told who his lineup is going to be today and who he can pitch? And today, some of the great managers, I think Bob Melvin's an outstanding manager. He's probably being told to some degree.
Or Leo DeRocher.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we can make a long list. I mean,
John McGraw.
That's reality.
Casey.
Sadly, that's the reason that we're seeing this today. And that's not Larry telling you this. I'm the mediator. I'm telling you what the experts are telling me. Good information, but it shouldn't be the only.
Dave Roberts, it was, I think, a World Series game that I forget the pitcher, Alex Wood or Cobb, was throwing a no-hitter, and analytics was in the dugout, I heard, told Dave Roberts to pull him. And then they wound up losing the game. I forget what year, it was a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that
For sure.
when you got them in the dugout, and they're Ivy League kids, mathematicians. To me, it's killed the game.
Yeah, definitely had an impact. So Marlene, I know you're up against time, and I have a hard stop at the top of the hour as well. I want to first of all thank you for welcoming me to the group. This is what I love about this book. I would rather have these conversations, and I'm welcome to come back. I'm happy to come back anytime just to pick it up right where we leave off. I know it's a slippery slope, Marlene, and we lose control fast, but I mean, it's stuff we're passionate about, right? So I'm happy to join in the conversation. I put 3 things in the chat for you. My email address. Feel free to email me if you have questions, comments. Love to continue the dialogue. I also put a link to Amazon where the book can be found, and also love for you to take a peek at my Save Baseball videos and podcasts and subscribe to it and give me some feedback and what you think would be some good topics of conversation. But thank you again for the opportunity. I've enjoyed it greatly.
Well, we thank you for joining us, and yes, we'll have
I'm
you
going to
back.
buy it from Barnes and Noble, not Amazon.
Do it. Thank you, Carol.
Jeff Bezos has enough money.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
And I'll try to remember to put all that information from all of our guests in an email, and Tony and I will send that out. But I want to thank all of you for joining us, especially Tara and John and Shane and Larry. I think Tony's in New York, so I think he has stepped away. But I always appreciate you taking time from your day to come talk baseball with us. And I look forward to seeing you both on Zoom and in person over the summer. Again, if there's folks in the Lefty O'Doul chapter who are interested in working with me to plan some in-person events or work with the Sacramento folks, this is what we make it together, and it's been such a wonderful experience. I'd like to share that with everyone. So Tara, John, Shane, Larry, Tony, thank you all, and thanks to all of you who stayed with us right up until 2. Does anybody have any last words? Otherwise, I'll say I can't wait to see you there's always tomorrow, I guess.
I wanted to ask how many people are going to the 9 conference in Arizona in March? I know John is. I am. Seriously, you should check it out. It's, what is it, 5 days of baseball conference? You don't have to go to the conference for all 5 days, but they really have some incredible speakers there, including John.
Yep. 9 is a good conference. The other thing I'd mention, Shane mentioned that JapanBall is working with Sports Travels and Tours for an induction visit. I used Sports Travels and Tours when I went to Ricky's induction years ago. Sad to say, this afternoon is his memorial over there at the arena. So baseball comes around, doesn't it? It does. And it comes around and around and around. So thank you all for being part of baseball's gifts to me. Anyone has any if no one has any last words, I will say good afternoon. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll look forward to a good season together. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, Marlene. Great seeing you.